Hello, BookTube. I'm going to try something a little different, but I don't know if I'm going to be any good at it. You know that my reviews, my coffee breaks, all those videos that I've done, they're all scripted. I prefer scripting because I have brain blanks. Now, you don't see them because I edit them out. That's when I stop a clip and swear at myself for just blanking out and not knowing what I'm going to say next. And yet I think I need some more spontaneous content in this channel, and so I want to try something new. I was mentioning when I finished reviewing Three Summers, my last fiction review, that I wanted to start reading Middlemarch. And so what I've done, there's probably no point putting this on this tiny little camera square, but I am reading. Let's see if I will do this wrong again. This side. Okay, well, we can do it this side, just so long as you can see. I'll bring it up to the camera. So I'm reading the Penguin Classics version of Middlemarch, and I'm holding it up like that so that if I quote page numbers, and I may do, then at least you'll know page numbers in this version. And I want to go really slowly, as I said I would. So all I really want to cover today is just the preface, which is a page and a half. But I think there's a lot of stuff going on in that page and a half. So I just want to try and talk it through, again, without scripting. That could be dangerous, but I want to try, because I think it'll just give you another sense of what I like doing, which is messing around, going deep into a book, going very slowly. I think it's the best way to tackle all 19th century fiction. I just don't think you can read them the way you can read, let's say, a 2015 mass market paperback. They are just two completely different types of book product. And the best way to tackle one of the old classics is to just slow right down. So we're going to do that. I'm going to put, let's see if I can get this to show. Okay, there you go. So this is the first page of what's called the Prelude. And I thought that was interesting. Right away, when I opened up this book, I thought, how interesting that Eliot doesn't start with an author's note. She doesn't start with an introduction or a preface. That would be what I'd expect a book to open with, but she opens with a prelude. So there is a musical note there, also I think a theatrical note, because I think you can talk about a prelude in theater. But certainly the idea of a prelude is that this is a movement, a piece of writing which will capture in sort of a nutshell the much bigger work that's to follow. So I thought, okay, so in other words, in this little page and a half should be the key to the themes, the ideas that Eliot wants to explore in Middlemarch. And when I read the first line, my reaction initially was, that's before I marked it up, by the way, my reaction initially was, what awkward wording to say who that cares. Who that cares? I thought, why don't you just say whoever cares? And it took me a minute to figure out why she might have chosen to, what would seem to me, because when you read it, you say, who that cares to know much, or who that cares much to know. You see, you already start tripping over the words. And I thought, I would edit that. And that's because I didn't see what she was doing. And then when I looked more closely, I thought, wait a second, how I'm supposed to read that is, who that cares much to know the history of man. In other words, putting the iambic stress on the second word in that first clause. And what you get is a perfect Alexandrine with 6 stressed syllables, iambic hexameter. And I thought, oh, very good, so clever, because that is the beginning of most classic epic poetry. And the word epic, I think it's key. And she uses it once in the preface. We'll come to that. But before she gets there, so she started with this incredible epic line, like she's Homer, and she's going to head off now into this grand story. And maybe she is in her own way. Maybe I have to bear that in the back of my mind as I carry on through the book. But she starts talking about Saint Teresa, and you'll forgive me, all those who are Catholic out there and who know exactly who she's talking about immediately. On both sides of my family, we are so Protestant, it probably should be something illegal. But at any rate, that's how it was. So I don't know saints. I have to go Google them. I did. So I now know that we are talking about Saint Teresa of Avila, the patron saint of Spain, and many, many other things, migraines and headaches. I thought, oh, good, it's good to know. I wish I'd known about Saint Teresa some time ago. I could use that help. But anyway, so she's talking about Saint Teresa and going back to a story about the little girl Teresa. And I'll read here from Eliot's text. So she says, the little girl walking forth one morning hand in hand with her still smaller brother to go and seek martyrdom, as you do, when you're very young. So Teresa was an extraordinary girl right away. If that story, true or not, it's trying to lay down the fact that this was not your average little girl. And she goes on to say, out they toddled from rugged Avila, wide-eyed and helpless-looking as two fawns, but with human hearts already beating to a national idea, until, and then I've outlined this phrase, domestic reality met them in the shape of uncles. And that's me thinking, you can see at the top of the page there, is this alluding, is Eliot going to take her much greater story, Middlemarch, and is she going to echo this story, this little story of St. Teresa, the little girl who's so excited and wants to go and be a martyr and do something dramatic. And then along come her much more sensible older relatives and say, now, Teresa, come back home where you belong. I just wonder if that's where we're going. I'm going to find out. So there we go. That's me pinning that up for checking later. And then Eliot goes on to talk about Teresa's passionate, ideal nature demanded an epic life. There we go. There's where she's using the word epic, and she'll use it again on this page. So she's obviously thinking classically, Homerically. She wants to create a work that is epic. So right away she's pinning her flag down? Yeah, putting a flag down, saying this is what I'm going to achieve with this book. Or that said, she may have written this after the book was finished. There's a possibility there. You just never really know. I need to find that out. Note for self, right? Research that. When did she write the Prelude? Before or after? I'm just going to move up the page here. So she then says, that Spanish woman who lived 300 years ago was certainly not the last of her kind. And here we go. Now we're getting to an even more important point. She says, many Teresas have been born. There were many, many highly gifted, passionate women looking to do something epic, who found for themselves no epic life, wherein there was a constant unfolding of far resonant action. I like that phrase too, far resonant. If you hoover the house and you cook and clean and all that, it impacts the people who are right there around you. And I'm not faulting that, but what Eliot is saying is, women also need the opportunity sometimes to do things where the impact is greater, where it extends out further than just what they happen to do around the house and those who are immediately related to them. And she talks about how, so many women, perhaps they're the offspring of a certain spiritual grandeur, ill-matched with the meanness of opportunity. And this must be her setting up what we're going to see in the book to follow, that perhaps what we're going to find in, who's it, Miss Brooke? There we go. I have already, referred to my own notes as Brooke, isn't it, the name of Dorothea? Yes, it is. So she's going to perhaps be one of these people with an incredible amount of, high ambitions, a passion and an intelligence that demands something big to do, but there isn't anything big that she's allowed to do, which is unfortunate. Sorry there, I had to pause the camera because I had to cough. Maybe some people just go ahead and cough on camera. I felt I had to edit something out, so forgive me for that. I'm going to close page 1 now and open up page 2 and just move it up so you can see it. Whoops, and move it out of my way. There we go. And you'll see it. Try to make it a little bit bigger. And you can see already, I'm going to go to my notes first because, of course, as I was reading this, I kept saying, Eliot says, Eliot says, Eliot says. And then I stopped. When I got to the top of page 2, I suddenly thought, wait a second, is this Eliot speaking? Because the text actually reads, some have felt that these blundering lives, that is, these female lives with a lot of ability but no opportunity, are due to the inconvenient indefiniteness with which the supreme power has fashioned the natures of women. And I stopped and I thought, well, no, I don't think Eliot believes that any supreme power fashioned some indefinite nature to women. And also, I've even said down here, Eliot was savvy enough to know that men and women were indefinite and varied in their abilities. And she does go on to say, if there were one level of feminine incompetence, as strict as the ability to count to 3 and no more. So she's saying, if you could map out where female ability ended and it was consistent, no matter how many women you looked at, then that would be fine. You could create a science of women. But she's sort of saying, you can't. Women vary. Who knew, right? And so she's talking about how you will get women of very high ability. A cygnet is reared uneasily among the ducklings in the brown pond, meaning there are going to be very, very capable women living amongst women less capable. And of course, that must be difficult as well, because it means that you cannot get any help with whatever your enterprise is. You don't have people around you. So what's interesting about this prelude is how it's setting up the idea that what we're going to see happening in larger text isn't going to have a happy ending. I think I can say that. I don't know the ending of Middlemarch. I don't know much about Middlemarch, but I suspect that we're going to have a story that ends sadly, a story that hopefully makes us think it's a pity that it's like this for women. I'm going to just change tack now. I'm still filming, but I'm looking online at an article in JSTOR. If you don't have a subscription to JSTOR or you don't know what it is, it's JSTOR.org. It's worth looking up. If you're interested in studying fiction and you'd like to get access to journal articles, you can, without paying anything, look at, I think it's 99 different articles. You have to read them online, but you can read them online, up to 99 articles per month. And I find it a fantastic resource. And so I went in there, I typed in the search window Middlemarch and St. Teresa together. And I got this article by David Smith, which comes from the George Henry Lewes Studies Journal, published in September 2001. And the article is called Middlemarch, Eliot's Tender Subversion. And he starts here in this paragraph. He says, many themes occupy George Eliot in Middlemarch. And I'm dropping down to the bottom of that paragraph. And he says, eclipsing all the others, however, is Eliot's supreme underlying purpose: to impeach the patriarchal myth of male superiority, thereby to open for women additional fields of achievement. So I think that's interesting. So what she's hoping to do, perhaps, by creating this great tragedy, I'm speculating now, but I think she's going to create a great tragedy of a woman who was very capable, but who was never given the opportunity to use that capability, who was always constrained in the way that little Teresa was pulled back by her uncles. She wasn't able to make the great, grand sacrifice and gesture that she wanted to. And I think that's going to be one of the big points of Middlemarch. But of course, knowing what the Mill on the Floss was like, remembering that reading experience, you could never take away one thing from Eliot. But what I did understand was just how much research she did into her books. When she was researching the Mill on the Floss, she studied a particular area of Lincolnshire where there was that tidal phenomenon. If you know the Mill on the Floss, you'll know that flooding is a big deal, the river flooding. But there was a point to that. She chose that locale very specifically because she wanted to use the danger of those moving tides to reflect something of the dangerousness, I think, of her main character, Maggie Tulliver. But that's for another talk, right? Nevertheless, I think what we're seeing here with the structuring of this prelude is that Eliot is getting ready, and maybe had it, percolating in her mind, that she wanted a tale of epic proportions. because she wanted that was the way she was going to make an impact on people's minds. If they read this great tragic work about a woman who should have been able to achieve more because the ability and the passion were clearly there, but society came in like the uncles, like the helpful uncles in St. Teresa's story, and just pulled them back and made sure that she just stayed close to home as she ought to. I think she's trying to set up something that anybody who would read would go, that's a crying shame at the end of it. That shouldn't happen. There shouldn't be a woman as capable as Dorothea Brooke who doesn't get to do something more far resonant, something more epic with her life if she has the ability to do that. So that's my view of the Prelude. I hope you like it. I'm going to call these Middlemarch meditations. So they'll start with MM, and I'll number them, and I'll create a, what's the word? Not going to be able to think of it now. Playlist. I'll create a playlist for them so that you can, pick them up easily and follow them. So by all means, click this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe, please. I mean, a new booktuber, we can't plead enough. We're terrible that way. I'll get over it. But yeah, if you want to hear more and follow through with the book in that very slow way that I'm doing, then I'll be really happy to have you join me. Okay, look forward to seeing you again sometime. Bye-bye.